NFL win totals have arrived for the 2023 NFL season. That means, in this video, I'm going to predict the over or the under for your favorite team's projected win total for this season. All 16 NFC teams. Let me know your prediction over or under for your favorite team in the comment section below. Try to be realistic, but I love to hear the feedback. Gronk spiked the like button, and let's go. Beginning with the Arizona Cardinals, who have a projected win total of 5.5. I'm going to take the under. I'm not solidified on this take quite yet, but I do believe if Kyler Murray is out for a majority of this season, the Cardinals are looking to tank 2023 and rebuild this roster into the future. New general manager, new head coach. They know that they're going with Kyler Murray for the foreseeable future. They're probably going to trade DeAndre Hopkins. They need a ton of work on defense, and they let go of Zach Allen. They also let go of Byron Murphy. They're two best free agents on defense this offseason. That means they really want nothing to do with right now, and they're all about the future. So I foresee a pretty rough season for Cardinal fans in 2023, but it will get better after that. The Atlanta Falcons have a projected win total of 7.5. This one's real tricky because Atlanta is a team that I can see going either way. This is a really good number for them. Last year, they really did exceed expectations with Marcus Mariota at the helm at quarterback. Desmond Ridder is the projected starter this year, and I'm not as high on Desmond Ridder as I even was with Marcus Mariota. Now, that being said, I don't expect much to change in terms of those two quarterbacks. So when looking at the entire roster, I do believe this roster is better. The offensive line is intact. It has more chemistry, and they're just entering their prime as a unit. Drake London enters his sophomore campaign. They added complementary pieces like Jonnu Smith and Mac Hollins. Kyle Pitts should be better utilized this year. I'm not sure if Cordero Patterson's going to be the same player as he was the last couple of years. He is getting older, but Tyler Algier is the real deal at running back. Defensively, they should be drastically improved. Coaching is going to be solid, and it's a change in scheme, but I'm more so looking for the talent in the front seven with Calais Campbell added to the mix, David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, along with Grady Jarrett. Lorenzo Carter is back, plus Casey Hayward hopefully can stay healthy, and of course, Jesse Bates. So this roster is much better, much more talented on defense. I think that allows them to get around 7 to 8 wins if they go into the season with a better name at quarterback than Ridder, which is why I want Lamar, Falcons fans. But assuming it's Desmond Ridder, I'm going to say over, but I'm really hesitant about saying that, projecting about 8 wins in a very weak NFC South. The Carolina Panthers win total for 2023 is 7.5. And I believe this is too low. The Carolina Panthers last year were basically a win away from going to the playoffs. And that was with a whole bunch of dysfunction. Multiple head coaches, multiple quarterbacks, 3 at least. They traded their best, most talented player away in Christian McCaffrey. They had to find a new identity. They lost their number 1 corner late in the year. They had to deal with a lot. This season, I believe you get a drastic upgrade with your head coach in Frank Reich, who I really like. You have a pretty solid defensive coordinator in Evero, and I just feel like it's an overall better coaching staff. You add CJ Stroud or even Bryce Young to this roster, and I believe you have upgraded the quarterback position. I don't even care that they're a rookie. they will be better than what you had last year. Offensive line is very deceptively underrated, and you have a receiving core with a bunch of pros. Nobody special, but Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, these names will get it done. Running back, Miles Sanders, and then defensively, that's where a lot of people sleep on this team. Really good players at every level of the defense. Derek Brown, you've got Burns, you have Shaq Thompson. Of course, you brought in Von Bell, super underrated name, and JC Horn is back. This is going to be a much better overall roster than most people give them credit for. I think they aid a rookie quarterback to maybe even a playoff appearance. I'm going to say over without hesitation here. I think they're at least going to win 8 games, but I could see the upside for 10 to 11 wins for Carolina. The Chicago Bears win total for 2023 is 7.5. This one is also really tricky. A lot of Bears fans right off the bat as free agency began got super pumped, super excited, super elated that they signed a bunch of people. But did they sign the correct people to actually help the areas that they needed the most? Offensive line, defensive line, maybe even secondary potentially. Instead, yeah, maybe a little bit of help at receiver, of course, with DJ Moore, which was phenomenal. I love what they did with the first pick. And then they did add a nice Nate Davis to the offensive line. And of course, Foreman at running back. And then defensively, some linebackers in Edwards and Edmonds. But you're still missing some pieces on the line of scrimmage. And then I also have a massive question mark about the quarterback, Justin Fields. I am not a big Justin Fields believer. I think that he can be successful, but I have yet to see him be successful to win games in this league, right? He's ran all over opposing defenses. I don't think this coaching staff is all that bad. I think they're kind of slept on a little bit. Eberflus did a decent job in his first year, and they will be a difficult team to approach and game plan for, thanks to Fields and some of the athletes they have on offense and defense. They will have a lot of youth that could potentially project to progression, given that the Packers and the Vikings are likely to regress a little bit, and the schedule is likely to be a lot easier. I think it's super close. I think this team wins 7 to 8 games. So I'm going to slightly lean towards the over because I really like the pieces offensively, and I'm going to choose to believe in Justin Fields, and I'm going to choose to believe that Eberflus, even if he doesn't have a great pass rush, can get the most out of this defense. So I'm going to take the Bears to go over just slightly the 7.5. The Dallas Cowboys win total for 2023 is 9.5. I believe America's team is going to blow this win total right out of the water. I think the Cowboys win 12, 13 games in 2023. I'm not just blowing smoke. Look at this roster and tell me different. This is a good offensive line. This is a now really thrilling receiving core, adding Brandon Cooks to CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Tony Pollard with the backfield to himself. This offense, even though Kellen Moore is gone, I believe could take a massive step forward because Dak Prescott needed more weaponry, and they get it with the vet, Brandon Cooks. Defensively, they added another key name that I love, Stephon Gilmore. Hall of Famer, gonna go play perimeter corner on the opposite side of Trayvon Diggs. You've got a strong secondary full of playmakers. All of your core pieces are back on that defense. The linebackers, the safeties. You have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong. You may even add more to the O-line, the D-line, the roster talent in the draft. I don't see many teams in this conference beating Dallas. As long as they can get out of their own head and Dak can stay healthy, they should exceed this win total by a mile. This is easily a double-digit win team. The Detroit Lions win total is set at 9. This is an over, big time, for the Detroit Lions. And I understand this is an extremely public play here. The Detroit Lions are everybody's darling last year and this year, and people love biting kneecaps. But they're a public play for a reason. It's because they project extremely well into next year. They're making the correct personnel moves, and they're upgrading this team from one that was already pretty good last year, that was a borderline playoff team last year, and they got better, and they're only going to get better through this draft class that they have 2 first-round picks. So they're going to add impact players to probably the defensive front 7, where they're missing maybe a couple to help out Aiden Hutchinson, who's going into his second year. They've got a lot of youth. They're really good on the O-line, which I always love. They're one of the best O-lines in the NFL. They've got plenty of weapons. They just added Marvin Jones to Reynolds, my number 1 wide receiver in the 2022 class, Jamison Williams, who's back healthy off that knee full time now. Amon-Ra, one of the best receivers in football. DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, awesome tandem in the backfield. And Jared Goff. Look, I'm not the biggest Jared Goff guy. He is not the most exciting name at quarterback, but he gets the job done well enough. He executes this offense, which is one of the best play calling offenses in football, and I believe this defensive secondary takes a big leap. The pass defense will take a massive leap in 23. I believe the Lions are the most talented, best team in the NFC North. I think they win the division. I think they get double-digit wins, and they soar over, or maybe I should say, they roar over 9 wins. The Green Bay Packers win total is set at 7.5 for 2023. This one, on the surface, I want to be going in the opposite direction of most people's thinking and say over, because I know a lot of people are going to bury the Packers because they're losing Aaron Rodgers. But when you really look at the roster, they've got a good team, right? A lot of good players. Alexander. You get your best pass rusher, Rashawn Gary, back. You have Devondre Campbell. You have Kenny Clark on defense. You've got still Christian Watson entering his second year. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. A pretty good offensive line. A good play caller who can manage a young quarterback. But I think I look at this team and I say, Jordan Love is going to be, even though I like him, I think he has potential. In his first season starting, I think there's going to be some rough patches, and this team just has never been able to really, the last few years, like, carry Aaron Rodgers. Like, it's always been Aaron Rodgers propping up the rest of the team, the defense, the coaching staff. And I believe this coaching staff comes back down to earth, Matt LaFleur and company. I don't believe in the coaching staff as much. And then the offense just doesn't have a lot for me to get excited about surrounding Jordan Love. When you look at the supporting pieces, other than Christian Watson and Aaron Jones, I'm just not excited about the offensive skill positions. And then as a younger quarterback, Love is going to make the offensive line look more ordinary because he doesn't decide and get rid of the ball as quickly or precise or move around the pocket as well as Aaron Rodgers. And defensively, they're just average. They're not great. So I see them going under. It's not going to be by a lot. I think they're going to win 6 or 7 games here, but I think they're just missing a few pieces in order to be that team that maybe does better than people expect, even losing Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to go under 7.5 for Green Bay. The Los Angeles Rams win total for 2023 is set at 7.5, and it's a far cry from 2021 when the Rams were one of the best teams in football and the ultimate Super Bowl champions with Matthew Stafford. This year, they enter a season of questions and almost a transitional year. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Stafford was actually traded at some point this offseason, but I'm going to think as if he's starting and playing this year. That's another question entirely about his health and his durability, which I don't expect him to last a full season. But the offensive line is still kind of in rough shape. The running game is always decent enough with Sean McVay. The receiving core is really a Cooper Kupp show, and that's about it. And yeah, Stafford's still good, but like, how good is he at this point? Defensively, they've really got Aaron Donald and not a lot left. Like, Jalen Ramsey left. And then you look at that depth chart. I mean, that is the most no-name defense I've ever seen in the last decade of NFL football. So I think you can clearly hear that I am going with the under here. But it's still with some doubt in my voice because of Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald. They have those 4 key pieces to the point where I wouldn't be shocked if they stayed healthy and they played well enough, they would win 8-9 games. But anything past that would just be too much to ask. So I'm going with the most likely scenario, which is probably 3rd in the division and under 7.5, something like 7 wins this year. The Minnesota Vikings win total for 2023 is set at 8.5. And the Vikings, I feel like, just on the surface, make for a perfect regression candidate. And because of that, everybody, I mean everybody, is going to be talking about Minnesota as a team that's going to go from making the playoffs to missing the playoffs and going under their win total. And I don't see it the same way necessarily. I understand that the Vikings won a lot of one-score games last year, and they did get a little fluky in that regard. But remember, it's because they have Kirk Cousins, they have Justin Jefferson, they have Dalvin Cook, they did have Adam Thielen, but I'm sure they'll replace him in the draft. And they're an offensive team with a creative, prepared play caller in Kevin O'Connell who elevated that offense. And they can score a lot of points, especially at home. They've got a great home field advantage. And you look at a team that won, I think, 12 games or something like that last year. And yeah, they're not going to win 12. But could they regress and win 9 or 10 and still go over this win total? I think absolutely. Because when you look at this team last year, they had, in my opinion, the worst defense in all of football. Like, it was dreadful. And now you add Marcus Davenport to the pass rush. And now you have a more athletic, young secondary. Byron Murphy is now there. And the biggest piece of them all, Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator and play caller, who I have so much respect for. I just think he makes defenses better, even if they maybe have slightly less talent on paper than they did last year. So I like the Vikings to maybe not be as good or as lucky, but win like 10 games still and probably squeak into the playoffs in the NFC. The New Orleans Saints win total for 2023 is set at 9.5. And this was the win total. When I was peeking at each and every win total, this one just stood out to me as one that, wow, that just seems high. Like, what? 9.5 for the Saints? Like, I understand they have a strong defense, and they've had a strong defense, and they don't really have any weaknesses, right? Like, they've got good receiving core, led by a young Chris Olave, a good backfield. Now they add Jamal Williams, a pretty good offensive line. You add a pretty talented quarterback in Derek Carr, who at times has exceeded expectations, at most times underwhelmed expectations. But with Derek Carr, a pretty good player on a mostly talented team and a strong defense, it does correlate to an over. It does correlate to winning this division. But I worry about the coaching staff, first and foremost. Dennis Allen as a head coach has never proven to be anything special. And last year, you saw a clear difference between him and Sean Payton. That also impacted his defense at times. The pass rush isn't the same as it was. Cameron Jordan is old. Tyrann Mathieu is old. Marcus May is getting older. A lot of their key pieces on defense are getting older. They're regressing. They're not the same. Demario Davis. offensively, like they're probably going to be good, but I don't know about great. So I could see this team winning 9 and just going under. I could see them winning 8 or 7 and really disappointing their fans. I could also see them maybe winning 10, but they're going to be somewhere in that range. And I think it's most likely to be a under, given the fact that I just don't believe the hype when it comes to the Saints right now and this coaching staff and Derek Carr at this stage of his career. I just don't see it coming together in 2023. The New York Giants win total for 2023 has been set at 8.5. And this one has been the most difficult for the entire conference for me to figure out. And a lot of it has to do with the last season performance. And then, do they get better? Do they get worse? Do they regress? Do they build upon what they had last year? Or was it just all a fluke? Did they pay Daniel Jones rightfully so, or by panic? Like, I'm trying to figure and formulate this whole thing. And it's the toughest division in the NFC, and that's what makes it so difficult. If the Giants were in the South, I'd say easily over 8.5. If they were even in the West, I'd say, yeah, sure, over 8.5. But in the East, with the Cowboys and the Eagles, who I see as better teams, and Washington as a fairly equal roster, do they still have what it takes? And I'm still going with yes. I'm still leaning the over. And it might not be the wise decision here based on logic, but I'm just trusting the coaching staff. And that's what it all came down to, really, for me. I mean, you have Brian Daboll, who's one of the best coaches in the conference. You have Wink Martindale, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in football. They brought back the entire staff. Daniel Jones' second year in the system. You have better receiving core options. Darren Waller at tight end. Paris Campbell at wide receiver. Hodgins is back, second year with the offense, all that stuff. And then still the draft to build upon the defense, which you added a good linebacker, which solved a massive weakness. So I like the Giants, but they still have so many holes on the roster. It's a lot about propping up what they have with the coaching, and that's why I'm a little bit skeptical, but I'm still leaning over with the G-Men. The Philadelphia Eagles win total for 2023 is set at 10.5. And I think most people are down on the Philadelphia Eagles right now, but I'm just going to give you a quick notification here. Go check the depth chart for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I understand that they lost some guys. They certainly did. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of my favorites. They lost Javon Hargrave. But you look at this team, and it's still absolutely stacked. Like, they still have the best offensive line in football, even post Isaac Seumalo leaving. They still have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm not worried about Miles Sanders gone. They still have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, arguably the best. Defensively, they still got loads of talent on the D-line. Jordan Davis should take a big step forward. Linebacker's a big weakness, but do I have to remind you? They have 2 first-round picks to solve whatever issues they deem that they have. So I think in this conference, this Eagles team will avoid massive regression. I'm not going to say they'll be the number 1 seed in the conference like last year. I doubt that. I even doubt them winning the division. But over 10.5, I'm going to accept the over here and say they win 11 or 12 games in 2023. The San Francisco 49ers win total is set at 11.5, which is the highest projection for the conference, for the NFC. It's actually tied, I believe, for the league lead win total with the Kansas City Chiefs of 11.5. And this one's tough because really it comes down to the quarterback position. Do you believe that post Jimmy Garoppolo, without that fallback plan for Kyle Shanahan to lean on, that the Niners will get through a full season with a healthy quarterback position and be able to win 12 games, because that's really what it comes down to. And ultimately for the 49ers, it doesn't really matter whether or not they win 12 games or 13 games. We've seen them go far in the playoffs without winning that. And ultimately, as long as they make the dance, they have the type of team and experience that they just have to make it there, and then things will shake out from there. So I could easily see this team winning 10 or 11 games, but everyone knowing that they're better than that, because they sometimes have early season struggles. And they will this year because Brock Purdy is probably not going to be ready right away. They don't trust Trey Lance, who I think stinks. And Sam Darnold has never proven to be anything, although I do feel he fits this offense better than any offense he's ever played in. And don't get me wrong, this is the most talented team in the NFC probably at this point. With the receiving core they have, the weapons they offer, of course the schemer, and then defensively Javon Hargrave with this D-line, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner behind that. I mean, it doesn't get much better. But I'm going to slightly lean towards the under. I'm just going to play the safe card and say, if Brock Purdy isn't the guy, I think they lose more games early in the year and they pick up steam towards the end of the year and they probably win 11 and they slightly go under this win total. So I'm going to say that they just don't have the steady quarterback play to win 12, 13, 14 games, which is what I think you need to win that amount of games in the NFL today. The Seattle Seahawks win total for 2023 is set at 8.5. And this one was an easy over without hesitation. I've been building up the Seattle Seahawks this entire offseason. I'm a massive fan of this young roster, their direction. I like a lot of their players. The offense, I think, is going to be one of the best in football in terms of top 10 production this year. I like the play caller. I think Geno's the real deal. I love the running back, Kenneth Walker. I think they've got a good receiving core led by DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant. And the O-line, I think, will only improve with a lot of young players moving forward. They have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and plenty of picks to add talent to the defense, specifically the defensive front, where they've already improved through free agency. And Bobby Wagner is back at linebacker. So I feel also Julian Love. I love him too. So I didn't mean to do that, but the Seattle Seahawks are going over 8.5. I think they win at least 9 this year, and I think they probably win 10 or 11, and they're very close with San Francisco in a way that I don't think a lot of people are going to project, but I see it that way. So Seattle wins 10-11 in 2023. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers win total is set at 6.5, and I think this is a very generous win total for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because on paper, to me, yeah, they have some talent still. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs. They brought back Levante David somehow and Jamel Dean, and they still have Winfield, and they have Davis, and they have Vita Vea, and Shaq Barrett's back. So, on paper, they've got lots of talent, but they don't have the key piece. They don't have Tom Brady. And I think Baker Mayfield is maybe the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. He was terrible last year for Carolina. He got better with the Rams, but what do you project there this year? I just think the Bucs are sort of in a mode where they want to lose this year. It's not going to sit well with all of their veteran players, but I do feel like Jason Light, they need a high draft pick, a new quarterback. I think that's the direction they're going. So I could see this team gutting out and winning 5-6 games. I'll keep a close eye on them. I'll cheer for them. I'll root for them. I love a lot of their players, but I just see them as the worst team in this division probably this year. 5-6 wins. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just what I see. And the final win total for the NFC, the Washington Commanders, set at 7.5, which is a perfect number because I honestly see Washington once again in 2023 for what feels like the 18th year in a row, winning 7 or 8 games. Because I like the roster, most of it at least, in key spots. I love the receiving core. I think it's got a lot of talent. I like the upgraded OC with Eric Bieniemy. At least that's what you think it is. The offensive line isn't bad whatsoever. It's mediocre. The defensive line is much better than mediocre. And you've got pieces to make a very interesting squad. But you're in the toughest NFC division. You have the worst quarterback in that division by a country mile, especially if you don't start Jacoby Brissett. And the coaching staff is easily the worst in this division. And I think probably, Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio are probably the most overrated duo in all of NFL. Like, they just continue to get by with mediocre results. I think that Washington, again, wins 7 games. If they start more Jacoby, I could see them maybe squeaking out 8-9 wins. If they somehow get like Lamar, maybe they go all the way with that. But I think that they probably win 6-7 with Howell and probably 8-9 with Jacoby. So I'm going to slightly lean towards the under, given the division and how high I am on the other 3 teams in this division. So under for the Commanders. Those are my win totals for the NFC. My early projection for the over-under for your favorite team's win total. Let me know your prediction in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching this video. And don't forget to check out the AFC video as well. Peace.